The wind carried the dust across the empty main street, swirling it through the last sliver of sunset. The saloon lamps were just beginning to flicker to life when she appeared, barefoot, stumbling, clutching the remains of a torn white dress. Her hair had been shaved unevenly, patches of raw skin showing where the clippers had scraped too close. The townsfolk stopped what they were doing. Cups paused midair. Conversations fell silent. Clara didn't look at them. Her eyes were fixed somewhere far away, glazed and hollow, as if she'd left her soul behind on the porch where her shame had been done. She moved like someone half alive, her bare feet leaving faint prints in the dirt. The whispers began immediately, soft, cruel, and cutting. "Isn't that Henry Tully's bride?" Someone muttered. "Lord above." They shaved her head clean. What did she do? Another voice hissed. Clara reached the watering trough outside the saloon and collapsed beside it. The wooden rail caught her as she sank to her knees. She cupped water in trembling hands, but it spilled through her fingers before reaching her lips. Her reflection stared back at her from the murky water, her scalp raw, her cheeks streaked with tears and dust. The sound that came from her throat wasn't quite a sob, more like a strangled gasp for air. From across the street, a man watched quietly. Eli Carter, broad-shouldered, weathered by sun and years of work, the kind of man who spoke only when he had something worth saying. He'd seen cruelty before, but not like this. Not to someone so young, so broken. He set down the feed sack he was carrying and crossed the street, boots thudding softly in the dirt. When he reached her, the crowd parted, but no one dared speak. He crouched beside her, taking off his hat. "Miss," he said, his voice low and calm. "You're hurt." Clara flinched at the sound of another person. "Please," she whispered, not daring to look up. "Just leave me be." But Eli didn't move. "Ain't right, what's been done to you?" he said, his tone firm but gentle. He shrugged off his coat and draped it over her shoulders, covering what was left of her dress. "You don't need to sit out here for the town to gawk at." For a moment she just stared at the ground, the tears beginning again. The simple kindness in his voice seemed to break whatever wall she'd been clinging to. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "They said I brought shame, that I should be seen for what I am." Eli looked around at the gathering faces, men and women pretending to pity while feeding on scandal. He straightened up, glaring until they turned away. Then he helped her to her feet, steady but slow. "Come on," he said quietly. "You'll stay in the stable tonight. Nobody's gonna hurt you there." Clara hesitated, her eyes searching his face for mockery or malice, but found none. Only a hard, honest kindness. She nodded weakly, as he led her away from the curious stares. The whispers followed, but Eli ignored them. Behind them, the last light of the day faded into darkness, and the sound of her bare feet in the dirt marked the beginning of something she couldn't yet name, a chance to rise again from the ashes of her shame. Eli led Clara toward the edge of town where his ranch wagon waited. The night had fallen deep and quiet now, the stars beginning to pierce the sky like cold sparks. Clara moved slowly, every step uncertain. Her body ached from what had been done to her, but the ache inside was worse, humiliation so raw it made her wish for invisibility. Eli didn't say much as they walked. He could sense that words, right now, would only bruise her further. Instead, he walked beside her like a silent guardian, his steady gait and calm breathing the only assurance she had that she wasn't alone anymore. When they reached the wagon, he helped her up carefully, mindful not to touch her where the wounds might still sting. He covered her with an old wool blanket and took the reins. The horses started forward, hooves crunching against the dirt road that led out toward his ranch, miles beyond the edge of town. The silence stretched for a long while, broken only by the creak of the wagon wheels and the sigh of the night wind. Finally Clara spoke, her voice hoarse and trembling. "You shouldn't have done this. They'll talk." Eli kept his eyes on the road. "They already talk, miss, always will. Best to let them wear their tongues out." She looked at him, confused by his composure. "You don't even know me." He glanced her way then, his expression unreadable in the faint moonlight. "Don't need to. I saw what they did." "That's enough." Clara turned away, clutching the blanket tighter. The tears came again, quietly this time. "They said I was unfaithful," she whispered. "But I wasn't. I swear I wasn't. I only tried to run, to get away before he hit me again." Eli's grip on the reins tightened. "Your husband?" She nodded. "And his family. Said a woman's duty is to endure. When I couldn't, they called me wicked. Said I deserved punishment. The rancher said nothing for a long moment. The horses slowed as the land began to open wide. Flat fields under a sky thick with stars. You didn't deserve that, he said finally, his voice low but steady. No one does. The wagon rolled up to the Carter Ranch, a humble spread of land fenced by weathered rails and guarded by the gentle murmur of cattle. Eli jumped down and offered her his hand again, but she hesitated. You can rest in the bunkhouse tonight, he said, understanding her fear. Nobody's there but me. You'll have your own space. Come morning, we'll figure what's next. She stepped down slowly, her bare feet touching the cool earth. The smell of hay and wood smoke filled the air. For the first time since her shaming, there was no laughter. No pointing fingers, only quiet. As she walked toward the bunkhouse, the moonlight caught on the uneven stubble of her shaved head, glinting like silver. Eli watched her go, his chest tightening with something that wasn't pity. It was anger, deep and quiet. The kind that builds in a man who's seen too much wrong done to the helpless. He turned back toward the dark horizon, the faint glow of the town still visible far off in the distance. They'll come looking for her, he muttered to himself. But if they do, he glanced back at the bunkhouse where she had disappeared inside. They'll have to go through me first. Clara awoke to the soft creak of wood and the faint smell of coffee. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the bunkhouse walls, painting thin stripes across the floor. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it came back, the night before the wagon ride. The quiet man who'd said nothing while the world judged her. Eli's voice came from outside. Got water in the barrel if you want to wash up. Breakfast's on the stove. Not much, but it'll fill you. She hesitated before answering. Thank you. Her voice was still raw. Eli appeared in the doorway a few moments later, wiping his hands on a rag. He'd already been to the stables, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his hair damp with sweat from work. Town's already talking, he said, not meeting her eyes. Word spreads fast in a place this small. Clara's chest tightened. They'll come for me. My husband, his brothers. They won't let this go. Eli leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Let 'em come. You're under my roof now, she studied him, uncertain. Why help me? You'll make enemies, Eli finally met her gaze. I've already got enough of those. But I ain't gonna stand by while a woman gets dragged through the mud for being brave enough to leave a man who hurt her. Something softened in her eyes. She turned away, blinking hard. Brave, she whispered. I didn't feel brave. I felt finished. He didn't answer that. Instead, he stepped aside, giving her space to breathe. I'll head into town later, see what they're saying. You stay here. Don't answer the door for anyone but me. After he left, Clara sat at the small wooden table and traced the rim of the chipped coffee mug with her finger. The silence felt strange, safe but fragile. Through the window, she could see Eli walking toward the corral, moving with a steadiness that seemed to anchor the world itself. That evening, he returned with supplies, flour, soap, a length of cloth. Figured you might want something clean to wear, he said, setting the bundle down. Clara's breath caught when she saw the simple dress folded inside. It wasn't fancy, but it was whole. She ran her hand across the fabric, overwhelmed. You didn't have to. I know, he said quietly, but I wanted to. As night settled, the wind picked up again, whispering through the dry grass. Inside the bunkhouse, Clara sat by the lantern, sewing a torn sleeve while Eli read an old newspaper by the fire. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was companionable, built from the understanding of two people who'd both known loss. But just as calm began to settle, the faint sound of hoofbeats drifted through the darkness. Eli's head lifted. He set down his paper, eyes narrowing. Clara froze. They found me, didn't they? Eli moved toward the window, looking out at the distant ridge where dust rose against the moonlight. Could be riders, he said quietly. Then, with a grim nod, he added, or could be trouble. He reached for his rifle and set it by the door. Whatever it is, he said, his voice steady as stone, they won't take you without a fight. The next afternoon, the sun burned high over the prairie, baking the earth until it shimmered. Eli worked near the corral, repairing a fence post when a cloud of dust rose along the ridge road. He wiped the sweat from his brow and squinted. 3 riders moving fast. Clara stood in the doorway of the bunkhouse, her hands trembling. She didn't need to see their faces to know who they were. "It's them," she whispered. "My husband's brothers." Eli set down his hammer, calm but watchful. "Stay inside," he told her. "No matter what you hear." The riders drew closer. Rough men in worn hats, their faces hard from years of cruelty and whiskey. They reined in their horses just a few yards from Eli, sneering down at him. The eldest, a thick-set man with a scar on his jaw, spoke first. "We're looking for a runaway woman. Heard she came this way." Eli straightened. "Ain't seen anyone that fits that description." The man smirked. "Funny thing. Folks in town said you brought her out here last night. Bald as a buzzard, crying like a sinner. Don't lie to me, Carter." Eli's jaw tightened, but his tone stayed even. "If I did, what business is it of yours?" "She's our kin," the man snapped. "And she shamed our family. We're here to take her back. Make sure she learns her place." The way he said it made Eli's stomach twist. He stepped forward just enough to make his meaning clear. "Her place is wherever she's safe. Which ain't with you." A murmur of anger rippled through the men. One spat on the ground. Another's hand drifted toward the revolver at his belt. Eli didn't flinch. "You best turn around now. I don't want blood on my land." The scarred man's eyes narrowed. "You think you can stand against us for some broken woman? She's ruined, Carter. We did her a kindness, taken her shame before the town did." From inside the bunkhouse, Clara covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Every word from her in-laws was like salt on an open wound. Eli's voice dropped low, cold as steel. "I don't call it kindness to break what you can't control." The men exchanged dark looks. Then the leader spat, "You'll regret this. We'll be back when the law's not watching." They wheeled their horses around and thundered off toward the horizon, a cloud of dust following them into the distance. Eli waited until the sound faded, then turned back toward the bunkhouse. Clara stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "They won't stop," she said softly. "They'll come again." "They'll bring more," Eli nodded. "I know." He paused, then added, "But I won't let 'em touch you." She took a hesitant step toward him. "Why? You could just send me away. Save yourself the trouble." He looked at her, his face unreadable for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Because I once watched a man hurt someone I cared about, and I did nothing. I swore I'd never stand by again." For the first time since that terrible night, Clara's shoulders eased slightly. The wind rustled the dry grass around them, carrying away the echoes of cruelty. Inside, Eli began preparing the rifle, checking every chamber. "They'll come at night," he said. "Men like that always do." Clara looked toward the darkening sky. "Then I'll be ready too," she whispered. And as the sun sank behind the hills, the two of them stood side by side, no longer rancher and outcast, but allies bound by the promise of defiance. The wind howled across the plains that night, thick with dust and tension. The lanterns in the bunkhouse flickered low, casting uneasy shadows on the walls. Eli sat near the window, rifle across his knees, eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the corral. Clara sat a few feet away, clutching the blanket he'd given her, heart pounding with dread. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to say. They both knew the men would come. Hours crawled by until, somewhere near midnight, the sound of hoofbeats broke the silence. Faint at first, then louder, like thunder rolling across the dry earth. Eli stood, his jaw set. "Stay behind me," he said, voice calm but hard as iron. Outside, torchlight flared along the fence line. 3 riders again, the brothers and another man, older, meaner. Clara's breath caught in her throat. "That's him," she whispered. "My husband." The leader dismounted, a cruel grin twisting his face. "Evening, Carter," he called out. "Told you we'd be back. Step aside and hand her over. She's mine, lawfully and by vow." Eli stepped into the yard, rifle raised but steady. "A vow don't give you the right to destroy her." The man laughed, cruel and mocking. "You think you're a hero? You're a fool playing with fire." He nodded to his brothers. "Burn him out." 2 torches flew through the air, landing against the barn's dry walls. Flames leapt up instantly, bright and hungry, swallowing the night in orange light. The horses screamed in panic, kicking at their stalls. Eli fired once, a warning shot that struck the dirt near their boots. "Next one ain't for the ground," he warned. The men hesitated, startled by the calm in his tone. Then one drew his revolver. The sound of gunfire shattered the air. Eli ducked behind a post, returning fire with deadly precision. One of the brothers fell, clutching his shoulder, while the others scrambled for cover. The chaos spread fast. Gunshots, the roar of fire, the terrified cries of animals. Inside the bunkhouse, Clara saw the barn engulfed in flame. She ran out before Eli could stop her, sprinting toward the stalls where a small foal neighed desperately, trapped behind a half-collapsed gate. "No," she shouted, pulling at the wooden beam with all her strength. "Clara!" Eli yelled, dropping his rifle and rushing after her. The heat was unbearable, the smoke choking, but together they dragged the gate free. The foal stumbled out, trembling, and Clara fell to her knees, coughing hard. Eli lifted her into his arms, carrying her out through the smoke just as part of the roof gave way. The flames roared behind them, lighting up the sky like a second sunrise. Outside, the surviving attackers fled into the dark, their courage broken. The husband, wounded and furious, turned back once, shouting, "This ain't over, Carter," before vanishing into the desert night. Eli set Clara down a safe distance from the blaze, his face blackened with soot. "You all right?" he asked, voice rough with smoke. She nodded weakly, tears streaking down her cheeks. "You saved me again." He shook his head. "No, you saved that foal. You still got more courage left than any of those men ever had." They watched as the barn burned to embers, the fire reflecting in their eyes. Not just destruction, but something cleansing, something final. When the last flame died out, silence fell across the land. The nightmare was over, but the cost of it, the scars, the loss, and would linger like the smell of smoke. And yet, under that vast, star-filled sky, something else lingered too. Not just grief, hope, the kind that survives even after everything else is gone. The dawn broke quiet and pale, washing the ranch in soft gold. The air still smelled faintly of smoke, but the fire was out. What had once been the barn now lay in blackened ruins, its beams charred and smoldering like bones under the morning sun. Eli stood among the ashes, his hat in his hands, silent. The night's battle replayed in his mind. The screams, the heat, the gunfire. He had faced violence before, but this felt different. This time he hadn't fought for land or pride. He'd fought for someone's dignity. Behind him, Clara emerged from the bunkhouse, wrapped in a wool blanket. Her face was pale but calm, her eyes clearer than they'd been in days. The rising sun glinted on the faint stubble of her hair, soft and new, a quiet mark of beginning again. The sheriff rode up the dirt road not long after, a few deputies behind him. He climbed down, surveying the damage with a low whistle. "Heard there was trouble," he said, stepping closer. "Looks like I got here too late." Eli gave a small nod. "You missed quite a show." The sheriff eyed the wounded man sitting near the fence, one of the brothers tied at the wrists, glaring but beaten. "We found the others half a mile down the road. One's dead. The husband's gone, but we'll get him." Clara turned away, her voice trembling. "I don't want him dead. I just want to be free." The sheriff tipped his hat. "You've got a right to that, ma'am." He turned to Eli. "We'll take it from here." When the riders left, dust rising behind them, silence settled again. Only the